Okay, we are live. Hi everyone, I'm really excited to interview Roman Gorshkov, creator of Brief app. I have been following the progress and updates of Brief on Instagram and Twitter, and it looks so promising. And I thought I should definitely interview Roman to cover the journey, the algorithms, the thinking behind it, because I have seen people developing plugins, software, web app, but this is a unique app focused on using gaming technology and uh, app development. So I'm very excited. Thanks a lot, Roman, for your time to do this.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Meyer. Thank you.
Roman, can you share us some highlights about your professional journey till date?
Well, I'm currently employed by a very excited company, Cattle Collective, and I'm associate at this company. But mainly, I'm focused on urban design and kind of the parametric side of things as well. So in the past, probably kind of almost 10 years, I've been involved in the many urban developments and the master plans projects, and I started to see the patterns which I can use to develop the new app, or maybe incorporate within the studio as a new workflows. So it's how my kind of journey started with the kind of the developing side of things.
I see. And in your professional journey, were you exposed to this coding technology from the beginning, and like, or was it before starting Brief you had to prepare yourself for all this?
Well, probably as many architects, I started with a grasshopper. So you're going through this kind of natural transition from the CAD-based software, where you're trying to do something very quickly and you can't, and you try using the grasshopper to automate your daily tasks to make it quicker. And then you try to do more with the grasshopper to be able to incorporate these workflows for the whole studio. And I think it's where you start stumbling kind of the problems where the definitions becomes too big, or you need to spend a lot of time on education for people and prepare your staff to work within Rhino and Grasshopper. And I think it's where the problem really is. So it looks like many companies start building their own software, but they have a specialized groups of people who can use them. So um, it's a time-consuming process, and also you need to spend time and money for kind of to educate the staff as well. So from Grasshopper, I start looking how I can use it globally within the studio. And I was looking for different ways. So I think Rhino has introduced this Grasshopper within Revit. So there are ways to use Grasshopper within other applications, and there is a plugin for Unity as well. So I started looking into how to use Grasshopper within Unity. And one of the things you can pre-build your geometry to stream into the Unity, and then be able to tweak this geometry in the Unity, but you can't build the app. So it's coupled with the actual Grasshopper. So without the Grasshopper itself, you can't build a standalone application. So that's why I kind of started from scratch and trying to build something new within the Unity itself.
That's exciting. And uh, what are like the benefits of using Unity compared to other gaming engine platform?
Well, to be honest, I tried both Unity and Unreal, and I stopped with Unity just because I had experience with Java language, and Unity uses C Sharp, which is very similar, and it was very quickly for me to pick up and kind of move forward. Um, and another thing, Unity is very focused on mobile devices, so Unity allows you to build for multiple devices at once, which helpful. And it just kind of user friendly. To be honest, I didn't like the Unreal interface when I started, and kind of you need to spend time learning C++ as well. Another thing about Unreal is I just working on my laptop, and sometimes Unreal is just, I think Unreal is just focusing on a very kind of high quality graphics, which is not, it's not what I'm kind of after.
Got it. I think now it might be a good time to go deep into why you started Brief and the journey.
Yeah, I prepared a couple of slides which I can share with the audience, just to go through the process. So it's a title of today's presentation, kind of the journey of development, the actual brief, and there's a couple of reasons why I'm trying to do it. The first one is designing actual cities. It's very hard. The process goes through many iterations, and sometimes you need to design multiple options and variation of the same city or a scheme, and it takes time, and huge teams are involved. And also the software you're using for such tasks, that usually it's not designed for urban planning. So you need to try to script or adapt the software and come up with a new workflows to be able to use it. And also kind of the software which we're using, because sometimes you're fighting with the software, so it's not a free flow from your kind of, you're not drawing by hand and you have the 3D geometry. It in some cases it's very strict, and in some case the software is kind of trying to frame your creativity. So sometimes we ended up with something very kind of rigorous, and we ended up with a urban design which doesn't have a lot of diversity in itself, and it's very hard to create kind of the very nice communities within your design. So to tackle these problems, I looked at game industry and film industry. So I think the game and film industry, they quite far away from architectural and kind of industry in terms of design quality, diversity of assets, and the workflows. And funny enough, kind of on the screen you see two kind of films done by Disney. One is Big Hero 6 and another one is Metropolis. And funny enough, both of these films, to design all of this, they were using the architectural software City Engine. So it's kind of using the City Engine and Maya, you can build something really special. But none of these guys were using Revit. So kind of another thing is the actual design side. I think with my app, I'm trying to open up more possibilities in terms of design. So the actual architect or developer can spend less time thinking about kind of numbers and delivery, and focus more on the design quality of the space or kind of urban fabric. And on the screen, there is kind of a couple of images of kind of designer from Hollywood, Sid Mead. He've done for the major movies, he've done a lot of great illustrations, which is kind of, they just mind blowing. And all of them were done just by hand with painting. And kind of taking all of this on board, what we're trying to achieve is a simple and accessible application, which is playful and unrestricted, so anyone can use it. And it's very important. So from early ages, people can, like the kids, they can start using the simple app and build their own cities. But because it's so powerful, developers and the actual professionals can use it as well. And robust, by robust, we mean it's a simple app, but it gives you all the required information for developer or an architect, say kind of the land use or areas or FIR. So everything you would want from that kind of urban design application. And just going through the tools we have at the moment, I know there are a lot of competition on the market with the new applications like Hyper or TestFit, which is, it looks amazing and very promising. And Giraffe is making a great job as well. But there's kind of a series of kind of, I don't want to call them old, but kind of they're very old applications which are still the mainstream within the office. It's our Grasshopper, Revit, and SketchUp. So we're trying not to make a tool. We're trying to make maybe a game. And the game industry, again, it's influences the way we develop up quite a bit, just because the games has a variety, playfulness, and kind of you just enjoying playing, and it's something we're missing within the professional application. So you spend, I don't know, 8, sometimes more hours a day working within the application, and you better enjoy doing it. So we're trying to take on board all the lessons learned from kind of game design industry, and what we're building is a serious game. So there is the whole kind of the category of serious games on the market. One of them is a Minecraft, which is not only a game, but it's also an educational tool for kids. There's also Scratch, which was developed at MIT Media Lab, and my son actually kind of quite enjoying using it kind of almost every day to build some tools and games for himself. And also recently, Apple, I think a couple of years ago, Apple released a Swift Playground, which is programming tool for kids to learn kind of Swift programming language, which is super easy to use, and it gives you all the tutorials, and it in a very playful way. So this is a category I think we're aiming for, to build the serious game. It sounds a bit cheeky, but it is what it is. It's an application you enjoy using. So we called it the brief, and the name comes from the actual brief for your design. So usually clients will come to you with no brief, so you have to design the brief for them. What the land usages they won't want, what the areas, what kind of making the test fit of the site. So we're trying to make all these decisions on the early stages of design much easier using our application. So we have kind of 3 pillars which we will try to keep while developing it. And the first one is keep it very simple. We don't want kind of complicate things. Playful, so you can use this app as long as you want and don't be tired. And robust, to be able to extract all the data you need. So talking about the simplicity, I remember watching the Apple keynote a couple of years ago, and they presented again kind of the best operating system yet. And they were talking that they spent a lot of time designing the trash bin as part of the new user interface. And I was laughing, kind of such a huge company spending so much time designing one icon, and they're very proud about it. But when I start designing the UI for my app, I realized how much time it takes to design something usable, but also very, very simple. So we're also very proud of how much time we spend designing the UI. And I think it's the functionality is important, but user experience is a huge part of the application development. So we keep improving and trying to cut all the necessary things from the user interface. So the idea is to keep it simple and provide the tools necessary to build the very simple city design. And playful is, as I told, I have a kind of an 8-year-old son, which is a kind of he's a main kind of a big part of the development team, and he tests the application almost every day, and he managed to find something that is not working correctly, so he always break it. When I tried everything and it works, I always give it back to him to test it again. And I don't know, if he loves it and he enjoys using it, I hope everyone else will do as well. So it's tool not for only for kids, but for adults as well, and for kind of the serious developers and architects. And the kind of the last pillar, it's robustness. So you can design your define your land usages. So every land use will have kind of a rule which will control the actual outcome in terms of building form, number of floors, your setbacks rules, and you'll get the instant area schedules kind of down at the bottom. So you can, we're currently working on the actual mesh engine, so you'll be able to kind of to draw and generate buildings on the fly. And lastly, I have just kind of a very simple kind of preview of the app, just the actual flow, how the application will work. So it starts from kind of designing the actual boundary and then defining the roads, and you just simply click on a function or tool you want to display, and it does it for you. So there is a couple of things. We started developing this app as a generative tool. So we thought it will generate all the buildings and schemes for you, but after testing a couple of things, we're trying to go away from this principle. So it will be more as a design tool where you can use the pen, draw your roads. If you need to generate a portion of the master plan, it will allow. But it's mainly kind of, we're trying to make it as a 3D drawing tool. So it's less restrictive on a designer, and we're just trying to focus on the actual kind of design intuition, because I think the AI and programming still has a lot to learn from the actual design intuition, and I think it will stay for a while. I think it's kind of the last slide, and if you might have any questions, you can please ask.
For sure. I must admit, I'm very excited to see like and test it because it was a very provoking presentation of like what are some ways we can introduce like playfulness in design and like how this gaming technology enable like explorations. So it's you don't get bored testing it out like even for 8 hours in a day. So
Yeah.
it's great. So my first question is, if I were to like break down how it works, so I'll have a iOS app interface,
Mm-hmm.
and then Unity, the code for the generative design is written in Unity, and that interacts based on the user's input. So like I'm just decoding like what are the algorithms on the way to make this happen.
So usually within the Unity, when you're designing the actual game, you made your assets kind of as a 3D geometry using different apps, kind of Blender and 3D Studio Max, and you put them into the Unity. And Unity has a very smart way of designing things. They have components, so you write a piece of code like a small script which does something, and you can attach these functions to the actual 3D geometry. So your 3D object becomes a smart object, and you can compose the whole scene using these smart objects, and they will react to different events within 3D scene. And it's very easy and convenient to design games. One of the things which slightly different with our app, because everything is not pre-generated, we have to design, kind of write our own mesh algorithm to be able to generate the mesh on the fly. So if you create a road, and you try to change the radius, it will have to regenerate the whole mesh of the road, and then after it, kind of the change all the meshes for the plots and the buildings. And in terms of the actual kind of workflow, how it goes from Unity to the actual app, Unity is just a game engine. So you design everything within the interface, and you write code in a C#, and then you build the game with Apple Xcode, and it builds as actual Apple application. And there is a whole process which you need to go through to submit the application and get an approval within Apple kind of App Store. And you can go through kind of the beta testing program to allow people to test before you release, and then the actual release happens.
Oh, I see. Sujay has a question.
Mhm.
Can I import Google Maps or GIS data into the app and use it as a base reference to plan the massing of the city?
Yeah, so recently we shared a couple of kind of images trying to incorporate the Mapbox maps within the app. It works, and you can use it as a base map within the application. We're still testing a couple of other SDKs to be able to choose the best one. So Mapbox has a couple of limitations, and there's also a new SDK which is coming out soon from ArcGIS. So we're still trying to test a couple of SDKs and choose which one we go for. But there's definitely going to be an option to use some kind of map as a background with the building, kind of the context building generated around your site. We also incorporated the option to include your CSV file. So usually you get your boundary lines as CSV files. So we thought it would be a good idea just to find a way to drag and drop a CSV file within your iPad to be able to automatically get your correct site boundaries.
That's interesting. And just so that I get it right, uh, can you share like what are the current functionalities of the app and what are the future functionalities you are planning to develop? So what from my like first glimpse, I could build roads, I could build massing, I could manipulate the zoning. So if you can clarify what other things I could do right now.
Yeah, I don't want to kind of tell you everything, but so currently for the first release, we're hoping to get the very basics correct. So you will be able to draw site boundary, you'll be able to generate the road, land use, and massing. So you can kind of any developer or architect can quickly sketch the future building, and then you'll be able hopefully extract it as an OBJ file to progress with other applications. So we're not designing the tool so you can submit the full package of documentation to authorities. It's mainly the kind of the sketching tool for urban designers. And in the future, we were hoping to progress it to add more kind of to add faces to our buildings. So you will be able to choose different styles of facades and different typologies. So you will have kind of different villa types, different office buildings. So every sketch won't be the same. So you can flip between different options of elevations. We have a couple of other things going on, but we'll share it when it's more ready.
I totally understand. Yeah, that's great. And I'm curious to know your thoughts. What are some gaming algorithms you find inspiring for generating like massing or other aspect?
Well, because I'm coming from architectural background, uh, almost all algorithms are expiring for me, and one of the first algorithms I wrote was air clipping, where you can give the computer basically the ordered number of points, and it will generate a mesh for you. So even in terms of Grasshopper, when you're trying to do the same thing, it will take you a while. But in kind of in a C# and a scripting world, it takes you, I don't know, maybe 10, 20 lines of code, and it's working. So I think air clipping is very interesting, and it does a lot of things within our app. So we're able to generate all the plots and building geometry using just basically one algorithm. Um, and for the road, we're not using any specific algorithm. It's just our in-house kind of research-based algorithm to be able to go through certain steps to be able to generate the actual road mesh.
I see. That's amazing. And what are some challenges you face while developing this app?
Um, I think for me, the biggest challenge is um, the systems and how they interact within the app. So, and I think it's the big challenge for all kind of indie developers within the game industry as well. So you can, as I mentioned before, Unity allows you to script, to make very small script and attach them to actual geometry. But then different objects within your game or app have to communicate with each other, and it's where it becomes a problem. So you need to write managing scripts to make this work for you, and then the scripts become sometimes very big and long, and you need to decouple all the code. Um, so it's still kind of the challenge for the brief as well. So we have multiple systems, like the system for um, plots, for building generation, for road generation, and all these different systems have to come together into one app and be able to communicate with each other.
I see. And like I'm just like thinking back to your earlier point about keeping it simple, playful, and robust.
Mhm.
So many times, like what I uh, face is in, let's say, in a script, you
Mhm.
if you want to provide more flexibility to users in terms of parameters, then the UI becomes so big. So
Yeah.
it's always like a balance of what are some like minimum or optimum parameters you give it in UI, but also like allow them to have some customization and like power. So
Yeah, yeah, and I think it's a challenge as well because there you can expose a lot of parameters because we have a visualization team within our company, and obviously they're using kind of Corona and V-Ray and all this good stuff, and all these rendering engines. They exposed a lot of parameters, so you can flexibly adjust everything. But there's also Twinmotion, which is kind of two buttons, and you get a great render. And everyone within the company loves to use Twinmotion, but when you give this tool to rendering people, they just hate it. They say kind of, I can't do anything with it, even though it gives kind of great results. So there's kind of, we try to be, I don't know, we try to be careful with what kind of elements we're going to expose within our UI. That's why it's very difficult.
got it. Sujay has a question. Can I plan infrastructure like subways, electrical lines, stormwater drains in the app?
No, sorry, we don't even have a plan for it yet, but uh, there, it's very interesting opportunity for us, probably for the future. And we saw a couple of examples on the internet how game engines were used for infrastructure design as well. So hopefully in the future we'll be able to take a look at this as well.
Got it. I'm curious to know, is there any particular indie developer or gaming uh, developer you find inspiring?
Well, yes, I showed in my slide that the developer of the Townscaper, Oscar, he, I don't know, his Townscaper, it just exploded the internet, everyone using it, and now he released the OBJ export, so people start 3D printing all these kind of nice villages as well. And I think it's very inspiring. So I saw someone tweeted that it would be good to have such a tool for architects. So I think it's probably it is what we're trying to do.
I see town scraper for urban design.
Yeah.
That that's amazing. Yeah, I love the interface, even like the sound of like adding assets is also,
Yeah,
and it creates like a dynamic wave, and it yeah, it comes back to your point of adding playfulness in building. Like
yeah,
it has that aspect for sure.
yeah. And I think because it's so playful, and some maybe kind of at the back of mind, people understand that it's a game. No one is complaining that there is not a lot of options and settings. So making our application a serious game, uh, people won't expect, like exposure of all the settings to control everything at once.
Got it. And uh, can you share like some resources you found useful while developing this app?
Well, mainly I have a couple of books. So uh, it was a long time when I left kind of the high school. So I bought a couple of books, kind of got them kind of on the table. So there's one, Essential Mathematics for Computer Graphics, which is amazing. So I'm going through the vectors again, uh, which helpful with kind of with game development and mesh generation. Um, but also Unity has a very great kind of learning resources. They have Unity Learn, I think it's called. So they have a tutorial based and video tutorials which you can go through. The only problem with all the online tutorials, they are based on the games. So I have to spend some time translating their knowledge into architectural kind of practices and changing slightly.
Yeah, I feel that because even when I was looking, like we had to do that translation. So I wish there are like more resources specific to architecture or urban design on Unity exploration. So more people get excited about
Mhm.
Unity development.
Yeah.
And like, what's your favorite gaming movie? I know you showed some in the presentation.
My
And
game.
yeah,
I don't know. I haven't played a lot recently. I think I quite enjoy Minecraft. Um, haven't played for a long time until Minecraft was released. Um, and then I tried a couple of times, and it just I don't know, when you start it, you can't stop. Like you can build a clean world and then just using simple boxes build something very exciting. So we spend a couple of kind of hours a week with my son playing Minecraft. So it's great.
that, that's awesome. I'm thinking about like using Brief, and I just had a thought. It might be interesting to have like a slider or UI to have like sun analysis or like shadow analysis.
Mhm. Yeah. We will definitely add this. Kind of all other applications have similar functions. So they all have the sun analysis, shadow analysis. They all try kind of some, I don't know, some useful features to add. Um, we're, we're trying to focus more on the bigger scale kind of sites. So it's thousands of buildings, not just kind of one or two or 10. Um, and one of the features that we will try to build after the first release is a kind of the kind of the site coverage and population calculation. So it's easier for people to say, if I placed the mosque or the school within this area, how many people it will cover and what area it will cover. So I think we will try to focus more on the urban development side of things, and then all the kind of the sustainability application will come later. Because you already have the ladybug which does all the work for you. You don't have to do another app.
Hmm. For sure. And I'm trying to like decode the logic of the application. So like from my understanding, so you have the assets, you like buildings, roads, and then you have like a logic where okay, if the building falls in this range,
Mhm,
and this radius, like the extrusion will be determined by that, and the offset, building offset might be
mhm.
determined by that. So can you like just give an overview about what are some logics you have in this app?
Yeah, so you probably seen on my website. There's, I think, second animation with kind of layers coming down. So it's what when I start thinking about this application, um, I thought about uh, the urban layers, and be able to transform this logic into the actual application. So you have layers of information, and each layer gives information to the next layer on top of it. So you have your site, and you sketch on top of the site just kind of the colors of different zones. So each color is basically a smart color, which will encode the information of land use, kind of the ID of the use, the area required, the setback rules, the maximum height, and the building typology. So all this information will be stored within the first layer, and it will pass on top uh, to be able to generate everything else. So and all of this is kind of stored in the layers within the interface as well. So you can always go back to the kind of the first or second layer and change your parameters, and it will pass all these parameters back or down to be able to make a change. So it's how we're thinking to develop it. We might be able to be able to kind of separate the layers. So uh, for example, you don't want to, or you have a project without any land usage, so you're designing something small. You don't have the boundary information, but you roughly know the location of the project, so you can sketch the boundary and just build a building. So there is no relationship between the actual land use layer and the building generation, so you can separate them completely. And if you have something much bigger, like, well, I don't know, 10,000 of hectares, you can build up this layer system to be able to go back and make a change.
Got it. And like from my experience, I think one of the challenges like the iOS apps have compared to the website is like the compute power. So on web based have like you could have servers, heavy servers, and do strong computation. And in iOS app you just have the uh, local compute. So how do you manage like efficient computation?
Well, it's funny. I thought other way. So I tried. Um, I started with Unity, uh, uh, not because I had a knowledge of different kind of the web tools and game design tools. I started with Unity, just it's what was available for me, and it's what I was be able to use. And I had this thought that um, web design tools is the future, and it probably is. But after trying most of the web design tools, in most cases they're not showing huge developments. So everything you see is up to, I don't know, 10, 20, 30 buildings at once. And as ArcGIS has a web-based viewer for City Engine, which can display a lot of geometries. But as soon as you start adding shadows and lighting and trees, it just struggles. So I think the web development and the WebGL is not there yet. And on contrary, the actual iPad gets more and more power every day. I think one of the bottlenecks of iPad is still RAM, but the latest iPad Pro has, I think, six gigabytes of RAM, which gives you a lot of kind of space for kind of huge room. Um, and also, Unity has developed a new framework for developing apps which kind of allows you, I don't know, stream thousands of meshes at the same time within one frame. We are not using it yet. We're building with kind of conventional C#, but in future we'll try to transition it. So currently with the kind of images you saw on the screen, we're getting more than kind of 90 FPS. So it's more than enough for an app.
Got it. I I just had a thought. It might be interesting where from brief, if there is like an export button where I can directly import in either Procreate or other like Photoshop tools on iOS and do like quick client visualization and like edits.
Yeah, it would be great because Procreate is an amazing tool. It works within the app, within the kind of iPad, and I think they have a beta version of Procreate 5 with the 3D capabilities where you can sketch on top of the actual 3D geometry. So I'm really excited to see how it works. I don't know. It's very early days for us, but if there's going to be an opportunity to work with these guys, it will be great.
I see. And like, what are some geospatial tools, libraries one should be aware of if they are working in this space? I know you mentioned about Mapbox, but are there any libraries you recommend?
Yeah, so we tried. I think most of them. We tried Google Games API, Mapbox SDK, ArcGIS, and there was something else. But I think we tried all of them. They all very similar with some kind of restrictions, and you have to build model in different. You'll have to build model and your scripts in different ways to use them. So sometimes it's your camera which is fixed to the actual map, and because the map is so big, the actual map under the camera is moving. So your geometry is fixed to the actual location. And sometimes the geometry is fixed to kind of 0, 0 location, and you also need to convert your game engine coordinates to real world coordinates, which is small kind of restriction, but it's doable, and all of them, they're providing the methods within the API to quickly make a conversion from one to another.
Got it. Sujay has a question. Can we adjust the logic of the computation for region-specific bylaws? Namely, like higher density or taller building could translate to wider roads and more green spaces.
Yes. So the plan was that you define your site, and then you potentially take your Apple Pencil, or using your finger, you just sketch the zone, and each zone will hold the rules you will define. So if you select the green color, you can specify that the green color is a green space. If you select the red one, you can say it's a commercial. Within the commercial space, please do not place buildings taller than 5 stories, and the ground floor should be retail, and it should have 2-story of underground parking. And then within the red zone, application will generate for you a simple massing of these buildings using the parameters you have specified. So we were thinking that the land use will control everything that goes upstream.
Got it. Sujay has another question. Uh, do you have plan to develop traffic simulations in future?
Probably we played with. So the Unity has ML engine within the. It's built in within the Unity, so we try to use it. So every road network we're developing has, it's a node-based system. So Unity machine learning can use these nodes to build up the system for transportation. I don't think it will be very scientific, it will be more like a visual thing, and you'll have to take it to kind of to a professional app to evaluate further.
Oh, that's interesting. Like I know like there are some Unity machine learning libraries which
Mhm.
has like great potential even for computer vision. So
Yeah, we tried. There is a couple of test kind of tutorials and test scenes within the Unity using the machine learning, and one we tried, it was a kind of a car park. So if you have a car park and a car going into a car park, it will make a couple of iterations until it gets to the actual lot, which is very kind of interesting. And you can see the potential how you can build the transportation system around it.
yeah, yeah, I totally recall that example. It was like using some reinforcement learning is trying out different options and then
Yeah,
ultimately figuring out.
yeah. I think it just takes uh, time. I don't know if you tried Delph product. So it's design it was built by Sidewalk Labs
Mhm.
in New York. So it's very exciting product and a nice. They have a very great kind of user interface as well, and it provides a lot of information about your site by defining parameters. But you need to wait. So when you define all your parameters and you click kind of apply, you need to wait 15-20 minutes until it gives you I don't know, a couple of results. So this is something we're trying to go away from. We're trying to use kind of the designer intuition to build the options and then to provide tools to change it quickly. So I think one of the problems with like with Revit or ArchiCAD is um, the numbers are slightly disconnected from the actual BIM model. So you can't you always go back and forth between the two. So you can't evaluate your decision with the numbers. So what we're trying to do is make a very simple interface when if you change the road or location of the building, you can see a reflection in the numbers. So your change is it's based on your intuition, but at the same time you see how it backed up by the numbers, or is it based on the brief you were provided with. So we're just trying to make this workflow a bit easier.
Nice. Yeah, like I am totally like can relate like the friction you have in your app. Like
Mhm,
even if you are waiting 2 minutes, it like it drives a lot of users away to,
mhm.
and like the curiosity also is affected. And I'm since we are on the machine learning side of discussion, I'm just thinking like one if anyone is trying out different iterations in brief, is it possible to have like a catalog of the data generated and like store it that these are the different design iterations we tried, maybe possible use it for some machine learning application?
So we haven't planned any tools to be able to export the data. And to be honest, we haven't even thought how we're able to extract the actual, to be able to extract the geometry in a smart way. So you're not getting just an OBJ file, but you're getting something as IFC, or so it holds some data within the object. Um, but the Unity has a thing that's called scriptable object. So it's a special asset, kind of like a smart variable, which can hold multiple data points. So you can store all your information within one, say, option. You can store it within this file. So you basically get a file which stores everything about your project, all the buildings, all the height. And we probably need to look at the ways how we can extract this information and provide for future kind of development. Um, and in terms of different options and transition between them, the current strategy is you start developing an option. If you want to transition to option 2, you'll be prompt it with a kind of with a box task. So I want to keep buildings, I want to keep roads, and then you will start a new scene, but you will keep some of the information, and you can start tweaking. So you basically you will duplicate the scriptable object asset file, which will hold all the information, only the information you kind of expect to keep.
That's awesome. I wasn't aware about scriptable objects, so that's great. Because like one of the thing I see is like for this urban design, like the files get a bit heavy, and like how do you compress the geometry and like export in a like OBJ or other file format, and how do you deal with shape files, and do if you import it into like the database, like if you want to querying, so it's another
Yeah,
game. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Well, we thought about the team sharing, and because the big plus for all the web-based applications, which probably most of them accept TestFit, um, is it's very easy to share the model. It's very easy to integrate the web-based model with other APIs. It's something is very hard to do within the Unity, and it's not something that our app is designed to do. But we thought about uh, network games, so you can use you can build the app as a network game basically, and allow multiple players or multiple users be and work within one application. But it's something we need to. It will come in the future.
Like how does like API in like iOS app work? Can you call it, and like uh is it asynchronous? Like I know in web based, like you need to deal with like wait and then logic. If it's like API promise is taking a long time for the message to come. So how do you deal like with those kind of things if you're calling an external third party for any information?
So it's something very. It's one of the reasons why I chose Unity, just because it's so easy. So within Unity, you have different packages, which are essentially SDKs developed by other developers. So as soon as you import the package or SDK into your project, it's already available. So the developer completely covers all the communication between your application and their services. And usually they're developed in a very good way. So you don't have any communication problems between your application and whatever SDK you are provided with. Um, so it's something which kind of helps me a lot, because I don't have to think about how to connect multiple services with my application.
Got it. So if I were to connect with Mapbox API, I would download Mapbox SDK and they will do the API calling and stuff. Like,
Yeah, and they provide the documentation how to use it. So you just basically use within your script, you're just calling their methods when you're developing something, and they're making everything else in the background.
that's amazing. I know this conversation could go on and on. It's very interesting, but I'll ask a few light questions to
Mhm.
before we end the interview.
Yeah.
Uh, so my first question is, what city is in your travel bucket list?
Um, I think New York again, um, Hong Kong. Unfortunately, I haven't been in Hong Kong, and I want to visit Egypt, but just travel across the Egypt, just because I'm kind of fascinated about the culture and architecture.
Got it. Is there any book or mentor who made a big impact in your life?
Um, I had a couple of mentors in my hometown who teach me kind of basically architecture. So they came from the Polish School of Architecture, and um, they just show me how to build buildings and how to draw. Kind of when I studied architecture, we were drawing everything by hand. So they taught me how to draw by hand and how to draw in a way it's going to be built. So without kind of using a computer, you're getting the understanding of the actual building process and how it's going to be assembled on site. So I'm grateful for a couple of kind of people who taught me this.
I see. And like, I know sometimes during development, yeah, there are periods where you get like many errors, things are not moving. So how do you keep motivated during those times?
Um, it's yeah, sometimes it's very hard. Recently, when I was trying to implement the map box within, so I stuck a couple of times. The way for me, the way out is just stop working on it and start working on something else. Um, and for this reason, I even have multiple folders for my app. So one is called kind of road, one called map. So I'm just, when I fed up with something, I just jump to another folder and start working on something else. And it helps me to move forward.
Got it. That's a great piece of advice. Um, and what aspect of AEC you feel is inefficient or frustrates you the most?
Um, I think um, I think the teamwork. I think we've got. Uh, I think there's great amount of apps developed for other industries to be able to provide a greater teamwork and communication than in AC industry. And one of them is, say, Figma. Uh, you can do, I don't know, if there was an app in architectural industry that uses the same team share capabilities as Figma, it would be brilliant.
Yeah, like I have seen discussions on Twitter about we need Figma for AEC, so
Yeah.
I think there's
Yeah.
definitely a need for that.
Yeah, and you probably saw the video where I think in America, one of the universities asked the students to draw a sketch. And there's kind of a nice video where I know 20 or 30 people drawing at the same time on one canvas, which is amazing.
Yeah. Um, so my last question is there any piece of advice for students or young professionals who are interested in such development?
I think our architectural education and our industry is very diverse. So I wouldn't um, I wouldn't ask students to focus on one thing. I would try to be I would try to have a broad mind and look at different things at once, because I think it's one of the biggest pluses of architectural industry and architectural education is we're very open-minded, and I think we need to keep the bar of being the chief uh, kind of designer and chief builder, uh, not compress ourselves just to designer or just to a developer.
I see. That's great. It was amazing interviewing you, Roman. We had like a lot of insights. I learned a lot of new things based on
Yeah,
this
no worries.
conversation. Thank
Thank
you.
you for having me. It was great as well.
Yeah, so they're saying your app looks amazing. Can't wait to try it out. See
Yeah, hopefully. Yeah.
you.
Okay, should speak to you later then.
Yeah, see you.
Okay,
Have a good
thank you.
rest of your day.
Yeah, you too.